In this mini lesson, you are going to review the different types of SOL prompts that you could get, and also review the different types of graphic organizers that you have options to choose from. For the 8th grade writing SOL in a traditional setting, you only have two potential types of prompts, and that is persuasive, which would be persuading, and then expository, which is explaining. The next time you take a writing SOL will be in 11th grade, and that's called the end of course test. And on that test, you will only have a persuasive essay option. So we're going to take a look at a series of essay prompts, and you are going to say whether or not it is expository or persuasive. Most schools offer a variety of activities, classes, and clubs. Identify one of these that students enjoy and explain why they enjoy it. Include specific details and examples in your response. That is expository. You are picking one activity and explaining why and how it's enjoyable. You have been asked to share a lesson with elementary school students. Using specific details and examples, explain the lesson and why it would be important. So is this expository or persuasive? This is expository because you are picking a lesson and explaining why it is important. Now, in that essay prompt, if we go back, you'll notice that you see the word explain here. But that doesn't always necessarily mean that it's expository. You do want to read it pretty closely to see if you're having to pick a side or if you're just explaining about a topic. Is it better to take risks and perhaps make some mistakes or remain cautious and risk nothing? Explain using specific details and examples in your response. So is this expository or persuasive? And this one is persuasive. And just like I said on the last essay prompt, even though the word explain is in the prompt, you are picking a side. Is it better to take risks or is it better to remain cautious? Some people believe owning a pet is important while others do not. Using specific details and examples to support your position, argue for or against owning a pet. So is this expository or persuasive? And this one is persuasive. You are arguing for or against owning a pet. So now that we've taken a look at the different types of essays you could write, the next step is to decide which type of graphic organizer is best for you for pre-writing. And maybe after you watch this, you decide that graphic organizers are not for you, and maybe you'd be more into an outline, and that's totally fine too. There is a different mini lesson or station to review how to create an outline that's best for you. So on a traditional writing SOL, so like the one that you'll take in 11th grade, you have to draw your own graphic organizer from memory. So that's kind of how you help weigh the pros and cons. But luckily for this essay, you don't have to draw it from memory. You'll be able to either draw it on paper if you want to, or use the Google Drive or Google Doc file that's been already kind of created for you. So the first option is the web graphic organizer. So it starts with that thesis in the middle, and then it's surrounded by multiple claims, and those would be the reasons in your body paragraphs, and then branching out from there is your evidence and your reasoning for each of those claims. Now, notice how it's got lots of claims there, lots of evidence and reasoning, but you would never write your essay this long. In actuality, you might only choose 2 or 3 claims. So one of the pros for the web graphic organizer is this kind of works as a brain dump to get all of your ideas out there without prioritizing which ones are the best. So you could come up with multiple claims and then realize, oh wait, I don't have any evidence for it or any reasoning. Maybe this isn't a good one. The cons for this one is that it's not organized visually, so it really doesn't help you with essay structure at all. It's really just a place to get ideas out on the table. The next one is your box graphic organizer. So this starts with a thesis at the top and then has specific arrows to your 3 claims. You don't have to do 3 claims for each essay. 2 is really required, but I would say that if you can come up with 3 solid claims, then the more the better. And then from each claim, it branches down to your evidence and your reasoning, so your specific examples and your support, and then your so what statement. Why should the reader care about it, which is what will go in your conclusion. So the pros for this one is that it allows you to pre-plan a lot of your ideas before writing and follows the essay formula most closely, especially compared to that web graphic organizer. The cons is that if you are having to produce this from memory, it does involve lots of box drawing, which can be tedious or annoying. For those that will not have to worry about drawing it because you're using the Google Draw file, there's not a ton of space to write out your examples and your reasoning. And it also doesn't have all of the components of what would go in those in that intro and conclusion paragraph. The next one is called a diagram graphic organizer, and that starts with kind of the thesis in the large triangle, 3 claims in the rectangles in the middle, and then kind of upside down triangle at the bottom for your so what statement. The pros for this one is that it's the visual of the triangles will remind you that the essay goes from big idea to smaller, back to larger again. And if you are having to reproduce this on your own, it's not as much to draw. The cons is that it does still involve some drawing, but without the essay specifics of the box or the web graphic organizers. So I would say another con is that it has no place for evidence or reasoning. So you might have lots of space here, but it will be harder for you to differentiate what's your evidence, what's your reasoning, like you can in some of the more detailed graphic organizers. The next one is your spatial graphic organizer. So very similar to the ones that we've seen previously. It starts with your thesis statement at the top, followed by 3 claims, and then your so what. So this would be very easy to take a sheet of paper and to just reproduce on your own. It has lots of space for ideas, and it still goes in that essay order. So those are kind of the pros for it. The cons is that the claim space is actually smaller than the thesis, and that's really the opposite of the size of the paragraphs for the actual essay. An actual body paragraph is around 5 to 8 sentences, where your intro and your conclusion paragraphs are 3 to 5 sentences. So that would certainly be very confusing when you're trying to write this essay. And I'm hoping I didn't misspeak, but each body paragraph will be 5 to 8 sentences. All right, and I believe this is the final graphic organizer that I'm going to talk about today. This is the Chicken Foot graphic organizer. I think some of you are maybe familiar with this from 7th grade or elementary school when you had to do DBQs or document-based questioning. And if you're not familiar, that's okay too. So the Chicken Foot graphic organizer starts with your thesis statement on like the long line and then branches out to 3 separate claims. So the pros for this one is that I think it's the easiest to draw and involves the least amount of planning before writing. So some people don't like to come up with all their examples and their reasoning and what's going to go in their conclusion when they're pre-writing. You just want to come up with the 3 larger ideas. And when I'm writing an essay, this is how I prefer to plan it out, because I don't want to pre-write every single thing. I just want to make sure that I have a solid thesis statement with 2 or 3 solid reasons to back it up. The cons would be that the claim space is smaller than the thesis, which again is opposite of the paragraphs. And also you kind of have to write it aslant if you are doing this one. So that can be kind of annoying as well. All right, so your last question for today, which graphic organizer are you most likely to use? Hopefully this was helpful to you and that you are ready to start planning out your essay.